What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Today we're here with Dr. Mawiyah Kambon. She is a clinical psychologist. We're glad to have her here today because I definitely have some questions for her, for sure, to pick her brain. But Dr. Kambon, thanks for joining us on the show today.
And thank you for having me, Phil.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I interviewed her son, a few months ago. He is actually in Ghana, but this is his great mother. You know, he comes from great stock. And Dr. Kambon, we definitely appreciate you taking time for speaking, to us today. So how did you get started going down the road of clinical psychology?
Well, it's interesting. You never know. Obviously, I'm also very much into African culture, and we know that we choose this path and this destiny before we come here. So obviously, on the other side, this is what I was intended to do. However, through life, it probably came about because growing up, I found that many of my friends would always come to talk about their issues with me. And even though I didn't know anything about clinical psychology or psychology at all, when I got to college, in fact, I wanted to be an accountant because I was sitting in the office of the business office at my high school, and the department director of the business area said that that's what makes money. And so when you're young, that's where you're focused on. However, when I got there, it didn't resonate with my spirit. So eventually I started looking for another career. And I happened to go to college at between 1965 and 1970, so that we were just exploding into the Black Power movement. And so I was trying to find something that would assist me in helping our people. And eventually I got to psychology, even though at that level as an undergraduate, you can't do much. So that's how I got started.
So when you look at the Black Power movement and you look at what's happening today, since you can speak from definitely both lenses, what is your take on that? Do you see some of the elements from the Black Power movement, or you see this is totally something different?
Well, no, there are elements. I think the Black Power movement of that time was very dynamic and very powerful. During the Black Power movement also was a civil rights movement. What we see today is somewhat reminiscent of that. Even though there still are the rebellions in the street, which was probably more toward the Black Power than the civil rights that talked about turning the other cheek. There are still elements because our people are upset. They're saying we're not going to take it anymore. But there are also some differences. Even though the civil rights movements had whites and others joining them, you didn't see that as much in the Panthers or others. Even though they spoke to others and tried to get them to develop their own power, the Black Power movement was really more exclusively to us. Today, you get to see people out in the streets who are trying to change the narrative from what it is that we are wanting to talk about to what they think ought to be talked about. So that is some sharp differences in it. The Black Power movement, through the Black Panthers in particular, had an agenda. They were focused on being in the streets and helping our people, grassroots people, the children to be educated, the people to eat, the people to have decent homes. Those were really the elements that were being pushed. Civil rights movement also talked about those things, but the difference is Black Power said we're going to take it, and civil rights said please give it.
Okay, so you're mentioning more so the co-opting that you're seeing of what's going on, I guess, under the guise of Black Lives Matter, I guess. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the co-opting is literally diluting things, or what do you see with this co-opting? You're saying, talking about changing the narratives.
So yeah, more diluting it. If Black Lives Matter were allowed to be itself and had the agendas focused truly on just our people, I think that it could be a movement for us. But as others join, they put up their agenda. And those agendas are not necessarily for just Black people. So you have anarchists coming in, which then focus the police attention on beating us, not them. You have other whites joining in, young people who might have some cause, but they're not listening to us. They're not taking their directive from us. They have their own agenda. So if we truly had our own agenda put up there, it would truly respond to taking it no more and putting out a platform for what we will do for self, not what others should do for us. It's 50 years past us asking them to open up the doors and let us in. It's now time for us to kick down the doors and take what is ours, take what has been kept from us for the hundreds of years that we have been here, and to right this wrong of injustice to our people.
You know, it's very interesting you just made that statement. And the funny part is I had just posted on Instagram when Tupac talked about the same thing, literally, about, hey, you know, we're not going to be asking no more. We're going to kick down the door and just take, you know, get what we deserve. But to deal with, you know, people don't understand like how angry, you know, a lot of people are in our community, you know, the trauma that we constantly keep seeing all the time. And I go back to George Floyd, you know, and I'm pretty sure you've seen the George Floyd video. You know, I was trying to avoid it, you know, at first when everybody was telling me about it. I wasn't trying to look at it because usually those kind of videos do something to me. And I mean, it did something to people all over the world, of course, that saw that video. But for us as Black people, for constantly viewing this trauma, you know, you're a clinical psychologist. How is this affecting us mentally? Because it do have a mental effect.
It has a significant mental effect. And no, I didn't watch the video because I knew that. I did see the snapshot of the cop with his knee on his neck looking up at the camera. So I saw that was enough. But yes, the trauma of it, they understand what they're doing. They're creating the trauma for us, just as they did during the enslavement period when they cut open the bellies of mothers and let the babies fall to the ground, when they burned us, while they hung us, while they brought all the slaves out to watch these things. And even post-slavery, it continued. The hangings, the burnings, you know, there are some very prominent people, white people, who participated in those things. And the book, oh gosh, I'm going to lose it. I just had it. Without Sanctuary depicts a lot of those pictures and those stories of our people and what happened to us during that time. And that's only a microcosm, because we can talk about the millions who lay at the bottom of the ocean on our way over here, the millions that died in the dungeons along the coast of Africa. We know those things. Most of our people, many of our people don't, but they see us being shot in the street and it creates a trauma. And that is something that we have to heal from. And that's why we have this global Black Awareness Month going on, to help our people be aware that our wellness, our well-being, our humanity counts above all of this. And we're the only ones that are going to take back our humanity. We're the only ones who will focus on our wellness. And so for this month of Black August, we are claiming Global Black Awareness Mental Health Month.
Now, Dr. Kambon, and I have to ask a question, you know, I asked, you know, someone previous this question as well. Do you believe that we can heal from trauma while still living in Babylon?
The trauma will continue as long as we are here. But I also understand that, you know, on one hand, if we can leave and we can create a better society on a continent that welcomes us to help come back and develop, then we should do that. But all of our people can't leave. And so we have to think about how we can build the kind of society, the kind of environment for us right here. And that includes protecting it, because this is not the first time we've had that idea. And you know about Black Wall Street, about Wilmington, about Rosewood, about New York City, where our people were thriving and industrious and wealthy. But then the government and their perpetrators in their communities, and we're talking about white people. We're not really wanting to mask this over, but they were supported by this U.S. government because Oklahoma, where Black Wall Street was bombed. The individual people didn't have those bombs. It was a government that sent those bombs out there. So as long as we have governments like we have now and people who have that kind of mentality, then our people are not safe to develop. And we have such brilliance. And what happens? They understand, they have taken that brilliance and put it to us building up their corporations, building up this country, when we could easily be building for ourselves and building wealth for us and for our generations to come.
All right. So, yes, you're right. We have built, numerous of times, and we have seen how they just try to undercut, even when it was looking at the housing crisis they had back in 2008, how they were just purposely giving Black people home loans with them knowing that we couldn't afford those homes, banking on us to fail. Mm-hmm. Right. So what can we do to not allow them to sabotage us then? Because it seems like we have to be extremely self-sufficient and off the system for us not to be sabotaged, or am I wrong?
Well, first we have to be self-aware. You don't know you're being sabotaged if you don't have any information. And one of the positive things about this COVID, close-in is that more people have access to the information that tells them about our historic greatness, that tells them about what has been perpetrated against us. And there are groups who are building. So we think about here at Black Therapy Central, where we're trying to get mental health providers to assist with the healing of our people. We think about programs like Us Lifting Us that are building communities and getting our people to invest in those. We think about so many of our groups, some not known by name, who are out there and have been doing this work for at least 50 or more years. And it goes back to Marcus Garvey. He had a plan that included hundreds of thousands of our people globally. His first conference in 1920, 100 years ago, had 20,000 Black people who were intent on building a Black world. And that it was visited by at least 28 nations from Africa and around the world. So this is not new to us. It's how do we protect it once we develop it? And we must have a sound plan. A plan that shows not only how we will physically build structures, but how the economics will come in. But it begins with awareness. We have to have awareness of self. We have to have an appreciation for our culture, a culture that is distinctly different from theirs, one that deals with cooperation, communing with nature, taking from and listening to what nature does, and not fighting against her, which is what we have been taught to do here in this country. They are always competitive, always have to defy, kill in order to feel a sense of greatness. Our greatness comes from just being, understanding that we are the descendants of great people and that we must take that greatness to help us be aware of what it is we need and be guided by that greatness.
Well, another thing that, I've seen, and I have a brother that come on, his name is Nathaniel Jordan, and he do a lot of health segments, and he talks about, the food and how it's just killing us in this country, and how they purposely put this bad food in our neighborhoods, and really, giving us all the high blood pressure, et cetera, diabetes, et cetera. But how important it is for us to, eat what it's been intended, because you seem like, you take care of yourself. So, people fight this brother in the videos. Oh, they fighting. Oh my God, they fighting. I've never seen that much pushback on a person in their life. You would think that he was telling them to not take care of their children anymore. But, how important health is to, our community.
So my practice is ONIPA, ONIPA.com. And you will go there and you see that my focus is on wholeness, mind, body, and spirit. All of that goes together. What you eat goes throughout your body, your blood, your cells. It determines how you think and how you behave and how you interact, which is also the foundation of our culture. It determines how we think, how we behave, and how we interact. And if we eat dead foods, then our thinking is going to be dead. Our spirit can't be alive to serve us. And our interactions with each other is what we see: anger, frustration, depression, all of those things. So what we eat informs our physical, which informs also our mental. And it's hard to discern which comes first. But if we don't have a right mind, then we will not be drawn to eating properly. And if we're not eating properly, then the way we behave, our physical conditions and all are also affected by that. So it's a wholeness approach. It's not one: mind, body, and spirit. And certainly as a human being, what we ingest, what we put in our body affects everything.
So, as a clinical psychologist, you're saying that, or let me ask a question: the food we eat can also affect us mentally. Is that correct?
Absolutely. And our mental affects, our physical, because you hear people who claim the term depression. I try not to use those terms so much, but it's the sadness, the inability to find happiness, all those kinds of things. It affects whether or not we want to eat and whether or not we want to eat properly. So it is a cycle, and it's a bad cycle.
Yes, ma'am. So when we look at all the different, like addictions we deal with in our community, and sometimes, the trauma of slavery is just passed down, like you said, the reinforcement of that trauma is, like you said, the George Floyd videos, or what happened to Breonna Taylor, or the constant is always a constant name. It's like this system makes sure to keep a name out there with some traumatic death to keep us always in a perpetual anger, a perpetual, sadness, feeling like you're oppressed, feeling like you're lost. What is the best way, like I said, we can combat that? Because another name is going to pop up. You know that.
So all of that leads to stress.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of our scholars talk about post-traumatic slavery disorder. And in the academy is post-traumatic stress disorder. But I always put forth that it's not. We are not post anything, that we are still in the throes of the stress. We're still in the throes of the trauma. And how we heal from that is we're a collective people. So this staying in place and staying separate from each other works against us, works against our mental wellness. It works against everything about our culture. We are a collective people. Even if our people want to, say they like being alone sometimes, what undergirds us as a people is a collective process. And so even our wholeness and wellness can happen in collective spaces. So for example, on blacktherapycentral.com, we did a 10-day healing journey that looked at many mediums for healing. We had Adinkra symbols on there. We gave proverbs. We gave activities. We have what we call spoken word, which goes beyond just the hip hop to understanding that our music is healing. So all of these things go into play to fight, and we have to fight it. First, we have to be aware of it, know that they are attacking us. When you know that you're being under attack, you take a different strategy. You gird up and you prepare yourself. And you have to be prepared, mind, body, and spirit. You have to eat foods that are going to protect your immune system, which means going back again to our roots, to the foods of the Caribbean, to the foods of Africa, those sours, those bitters, those lemons, those ginger, all of these things that help purge us, but also provide healing to our immune system, which will fight all disease. And we also have to be prepared that if they come after us, we can't run. We have to turn around and be prepared to take on what they bring on. And so that means that we need to engage in combative art sciences that some call martial arts. We have to know that. We have to know, our sisters have to be prepared that if they go out in the streets and someone attacks them, that you just can't throw up your hands. You have to be prepared to defend your children, because more than likely the children will be with you. And we have to be prepared. You know, I've seen a lot of these videos popping up about Karens and the WSs and all that kind of thing, where they're coming at us, trying to ignite and incite us to violence. So we don't need to be violent for violence sake. We need to be prepared to defend ourselves if they come up against us. And that is part of wellness too. But most of all, I guide people on my site, and in my practice, I do guided meditation, where sometimes we get outside of our conscious human self to accept our spirit self and let us be guided by that, so that we're not under stress all the time. Because when we're under stress, it lends us toward anger and acting spontaneously, which can sometimes be not appropriate. So in the foundation of Ma'at, one of the principles is propriety, which means being appropriate at the appropriate time, doing the appropriate thing at the appropriate time. We have to be less stressed so that we can spontaneously do the appropriate thing at the appropriate time, which will lend itself to our wellness and our well-being.
So if somebody's watching like right now and they were saying, you know what, man, Dr. Kambon is spot on. They say, now, if they would say, hey, do she do like individual counseling, or is that also offered through blacktherapycentral.com?
Right. Black Therapy Central is a platform, like a referral platform. So we're asking other therapists from around the country to join it so people can find you. We particularly focus on African-centered therapy because that is uniquely different from what we are taught in the academy. But yes, I can be found on blacktherapycentral.com and on onipa.com. And so our goal is to help people become prepared and aware and claim our humanity. And in order to do that, we have to get beyond the stress that's put on us, the stress that keeps us from being able to move in the direction that we need to go, be able to even think clearly, because we're always fighting off. They're always putting up one more fire for us to try to put out. We have to be in control. So some of those fires need to burn while we create strategies for life and for living and for legacy. So Black Therapy Central is one of those places, as well as onipa.com. But I'd like to talk about an event that's coming up that we're asking people to participate. This is not something that you need to go to the website for. We're asking people to celebrate Ancestral Veneration Day on August 19th. That's 2 days after Marcus Garvey's birthday. And what it is in our communities, that's a special day anyway for ancestors. And so we want to call out the names of all of those who have fallen. And we're asking the strong warrior ancestors that have been there for our past to reach down and pull them through. We know that these were untimely deaths and that they are ancestors, but that we also understand that there's a process that they go through. And we want to honor them and let them know that we need them now, because they understand what we've been through. We need them now in preparation for the things that are about to come upon us. And so Ancestral Veneration Day, August 19th, is a time for you to go out and celebrate your ancestors and to remember those fallen ones, those who had untimely death, because they are a part of our family too. Our ancestors are a part of our family.
Yes, and I'm a firm believer of we really need, mental, counseling in our community. And that's something that's really not talked about, because a lot of us, I feel that some of us could be ticking time bombs due to all the, like you say, the stress you talked about, the trauma you talked about. A lot of times some of us are sad, You know, some of us, you're talking about a lot of times brothers don't talk about this, but sometimes brothers feel so beat down, they can't really feel like they could, you know, conquer things or overcome things. And, you know, as Black men, especially, you know, we, you know, definitely can't express how we feel, or we're demonized for it, even within our own community. So I feel that, you know, what you're doing and your team is doing is definitely greatly needed in the Black community.
And I'd like to speak about that to Black men too. I'm having more and more Black men come into my practice because they understand, you know, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of trying to reclaim your strength. And so we often talk about how badly the Black man is beat down, which is true. You know, he can't go out there without having to look behind his back all the time. But I'd like to also speak up for our sisters. You know, we talk about the big S that our Black women wear, which is a big stressor, because no matter what, you have to make sure that the children are taken care of, that they are fed, that they are clothed, even if our Black men can't do that. And so it's both of us. We come into this world in order for balance. We have to have the Black man and the Black woman. We all have to be moving forward. And so there need to be discussions to understand that the stress goes all the way around and the children are affected. And if we don't solve this problem now, then we're going to be talking about this and experiencing it for generations to come. It's time to stop passing on this trauma to our children. It is deep in our DNA and we need to cleanse. And mental health, wellness work assist in that. So people should not be ashamed or concerned about seeking mental health services. We are here together. We are a collective. And it is our job and our duty to make sure that we move from generation to generation as whole human beings so that our spirit can thrive and inform us of the direction we must take.
Yes, I definitely, you know, support that, you know, 1,000%. That's for sure. So how people could contact you, you know, Dr. Kambon, is through Black Therapy Central, or you also have an email or maybe a website for them to contact you on as well?
Right. Onipa.com, ONIPA.com. But also be aware that this is Global Black Mental Health Awareness Month. And if you have not done it before, this is truly a time for you to go out and seek in your community. You know, with this pandemic, we have telehealth. So I do telehealth across the country, which is a video conferencing service. At this point, we're not taking people in the door, but telehealth is available. And our therapists provide that. So there are ways for everyone to receive it. I'm seeing a lot of couples in therapy, mothers concerned about children, parenting children in the middle of this, because now you have to be educators. We're here to explain those. And on Black Therapy Central, we will be having webinars where people can come to learn effective ways for parenting, to, you know, break some of the stigmas, but understand too that now many of our people, thousands of our people, are seeking help through Black Mental Health Awareness Month. And we are here to provide for that. Yes, you can reach me at onipa.com or blacktherapy.com or my guided meditation site. So there are services out here that our people provide. Seek out an African-centered therapist. They are much aware that we are significantly different from what is taught in the academy, that we connect with our people because we are our people.
And I like that you said that, because you're right. Our experience is totally different. You're right. We are different people, and there's nothing wrong with saying that.
Right.
And I'm so glad you touched on that. So Dr. Kambon, thank you for joining us on the show today. It was definitely great to hear your words of wisdom. Definitely was, you know, going on here. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure to utilize these services, because like I said, we all need it. You know, we all do, you know, no matter what position that you are in here in America, we deal with a lot of issues. So you stay blessed, Doctor.
And thank you so much for having me, Phil.